Welcome to Life Unedited. This is your lifestyle guide to living a life that aligns solely with you. I am your host, Tabitha Sweeney, a coach and inspirational speaker who is all about authenticity, friendly sass, and helping you unlock your best self. Welcome back, you guys. I am here today and I'm super, super excited because we have Leanne Jamison with us of Essentially Zenful. And I told you guys that I'm going to start bringing us some more guests in so you have some more than just my lovely voice to listen to. And so we've got Leanne here today, and I'm super pumped to have her be one of our very first guests on the podcast because she is the very first time we met. I think we sat and talked for what, like
I think it was
2 hours.
I was gonna say, I think it was 2 hours, maybe a little over.
It was forever. And I literally just made a joke. I was like, well, in 18 hours, we'll wrap this up. And she's like, I have another meeting today, Tab. Like, I have business to do. So, that's how this goes. But we're going to chat because Leanne her background is fascinating, and really, you took a big chance on yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So taking chances, learning to trust yourself again, over and over and over, because right, it's a process that we go through as we are finding our authentic self and living our authentic life. But yeah, that's where I came. Essentially Zenful came to fruition, was all about authentic living. And my background is in psychology. So I have my license. I'm a licensed psychotherapist in Georgia. And that was my life for like 15 years, somewhere around there. I still have my license, but now working as a women's empowerment coach and holistic business coach. And I've been doing that since 2020. And it has been an amazing wild ride because I had dipped my toe in and out of entrepreneurship all throughout my career and always got too scared, right? Didn't trust myself, didn't trust that I would be able to make it. I had all of these external voices, but it wasn't so much the external voices, it was the internal voices of fear and doubt, imposter syndrome, all of that, right? And then just being able to take the leap into, and I'm even shifting from Essentially Zenful to the Institute for Female Trailblazers. So it's like, that's why I mean, like, it's an ongoing process of exploration and really finding your voice and stepping into your personal power as you move through life. And this doesn't have to be just in entrepreneurship, right? If you go into business, but in so many facets of your life of just trusting yourself. We always know the answer, but we have been so conditioned to doubt ourselves. So yeah, that is where I'm at now.
It's amazing. Because I think the one thing is, it's funny when you talk to another intuitive,
Hmm.
they understand and I've had this conversation has come up multiple times, from how I decided to move to Pittsburgh
Yes.
to this new shift in my coaching that I'm sort of undergoing. And it's like, I know it in my bones, but logically, I can't put anything on paper. Like, I cannot list the reasons, but I
Yeah.
just
You know.
know it.
Well, because on the outside, everybody's like, none of this makes sense. And that's the important thing to know about like intuition, trusting your gut, your spirit, however you want to identify it, is that it often is not based in logic. It's not, it's a feeling, it's a deep, deep knowing. It's not, oh, guess what? I'm making, I was successful what I was doing, as a therapist. I climbed the corporate ladder. I had the best job. I had a great boss. I had an organization that I loved, and I was still unfulfilled, right?
Mhm.
And walking away from that six-figure job as the breadwinner, as like being known in my field, like I was being headhunted in my field. Like, talk about, reaching the top of wherever. And people are like, you're quitting? What? I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I am. I started my business. I'm quitting. I know that it doesn't make sense to you, or maybe whatever, but it makes sense to me, and it feels, I know that this is the right thing to do.
it is so it is this feeling like I've always been intuitive, but over the past year, I've really, really tuned into my woo woo. And and it's amazing because the more you tap in, the more you learn to trust yourself,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And the more that you begin to stop needing the external validation that I think so many of us seek out.
Yeah,
And when we're seeking it out, that really easily like influences what we quote unquote know or think
absolutely.
or feel. Um, what I mean, learning. I coach on self trust, and it's still something. I think the one thing that we have to like, I love to make really clear is that even though we coach on this stuff, right? Even though this is like our life, and we are dedicated to personal growth and evolving, and it's not easy. Like,
No.
we still struggle, we still have imposter syndrome, we still have moments of paralyzing fear.
Yes, absolutely. I was talking to somebody the other day and they're like, "I wish that I could just like speak like you do. You can command a room and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Do you every time I get up and I speak, I get nervous." I'm like, I get nervous. I don't care if it's in front of 30 people or 500 people. There are nerves. So, and I'm like running through my head. I'm like, "Leanne, just stop. You know this. Just like
And
center in."
it's so funny because, like, I can stand up and talk to a room or
Yeah.
an auditorium, whatever, but walking up one-on-one and sticking my hand to introduce myself, I would rather stab myself in the eye. Like, "No, thank you. Don't wanna do that." And it seems so like, so I think that's another part, is like, we can't always our fears are not logical.
Absolutely. They're complete lies, actually. If
Right?
you think about it.
I like to, I'll take your opinion on this. I like to, one of my techniques for myself is, I will repeat to myself, like, that's just the devil, and his job is to keep me here and to keep me
Yes.
stuck. And that's how I kind of get myself through it, is like, he's holding me here because
Yeah.
whatever's on the other side is that good.
Yes,
He's he's
absolutely.
scared of me getting there, and I've used that like, especially when I get anxiety, like, I'm like, "This isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real."
Yes. I actually shift a lot because having so there are a couple ways I address it as like my scared younger self that maybe got hurt or like because that's where the fears come from, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like or the external validation or like I'm not good enough, all this of like messages from the past. So being able to identify like oh that's my little 8-year old that's freaking the fuck out because she feels like she's going to be reprimanded for speaking her mind um, and being too much. So let me just like, hi, 8-year old, I love you. Don't worry, this is safe. Like, we got this.
Ooh,
Right.
I
So a
like
little bit
that.
of healing in there, right? Healing. And that comes from, therapeutic background of just like healing the inner child and
Yeah.
um all of these things. But so it's that aspect of it. And I always like whenever like the fear comes up, I'm like, that's just excitement. That's just excitement. It's because we get to label our reality. They're both firing. I mean, the chemicals in our brain are firing the same, whether it's fear or excitement. So why do I have to label it fear? I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yes. It's that is a really good point. My kids, we call it skited. Like, when they're, when they're, because I always try to explain to them, like, there's a difference, like, there's that skited fear where
Oh, I love
you
that.
need to push through it. You
Yes.
know that what's on the other side is worth it. And then there's that fear that's, like, deep-seated, like, I have a fear of water and drowning, and please do not decide you're gonna drop me into a lake and tell me to get over it, right? Like,
Right.
that like, so there's, like, I'm like, I always tell them, like, "I want you to tell me, like, are you scared, like, you need me to hold your hand and tell you you don't have to do this? Or are you scared, like, you need me to say you're gonna be okay and kind of push you a little bit?"
I
Because
love that.
I think as adults, we need that too. Like,
Yeah.
there's 2 different types of fear, and I know I'm terrified, but I need you to tell me it's gonna be okay and give me a nice kick in the ass and tell me to go. Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Just like our kids, just like our and that's like a good I love that just because when I think about like how I want to talk to myself because even like, that inner child healing, it's all self-talk. It's all like in, our mind, our soul, our heart. But I love that because there is it's like sometimes I tell people and I have to tell myself like is this a fear that we need to go back and heal or is this a fear we just need to shift and be like let's go, right?
yes.
And I always say this is a parallel process too, right, where we're like healing and moving forward continuously because I've seen it. I know I've been there. I know that as a therapist, people can get stuck in the problem, right? Stuck in the hurt, stuck in the pain, and live there where it's just like it's important to identify we're not living there though. We can heal the past, but it's all in order to be present for today and then, keep moving forward. So,
I think that I wanna touch on that really quick because I think that's such an important point, and I think sometimes we get stuck, and we don't
mhm,
mean to get stuck,
no.
and we're not really I don't even like calling it stuck in some instances because we know that there are people who get stuck and they don't want to get out, and then there's
Mhm.
people who are stuck and you want to get out, and you feel like you're trying so hard, but everything you've tried is like this very slippery slope and path where you just keep falling down the mountain, and I've been there, and I'm super open about that in my journey, and
Yep.
I had said the other day to my business coach, I said to her, I was like, "Connie, I just feel like all of a sudden things make sense, and I'm mad at myself because how for 6 years could I not get this?" And now I'm like, "Oh my god, it was this simple the whole time," and I was super like and I think a lot of people experience it, and that almost at some point can make you wanna give up because 'cause you're like, "Well, how did I not get this before?" Instead of being proud on where we are now.
Right. Absolutely.
And she said to me and it was funny because she said to me, she's like, "Tab, I just heard once that, like, the universe doesn't make mistakes in her timing."
Yeah.
And as I think about it, I'm like, if any one thing had gone different, if I had succeeded before this, my life wouldn't be where it is right now. Something
Right.
would be missing. Something would be right? Like good, bad, better, same doesn't matter. It wouldn't be this.
Right. Exactly. I think that we do. We, make sense of like, and I think part of it is us just being able to make sense of it, of just like everything and having faith that like everything does truly happen the way it's meant to, exactly when it's meant to. Everything aligns. And yeah, that goes back to having faith in ourselves, but also having faith in something bigger. That's huge too when we're leaping forward, when we're, I sort of call it like falling forward in faith.
Oh, I like that. Because it's pretty much like it's a free fall. A
Exactly.
faithful free fall. That's what it is. Yes.
But and it is, right? Really truly knowing that our journeys have led us to this point and we still have choices to make, right? And we don't
Mhm.
know where that's going to be. And that's where most people get stuck if you want to, being able to identify that of like this loop of just well, getting just right by their comfort zone, maybe a little bit past their comfort zone and then looping back around, right? Not intentionally. We don't do it, because we love to be masochists. Like, I'm self masochist.
No. I mean, I talk a lot about my pillars and how that's
Mhm.
like a circle because for me, I coach self-trust and authenticity, but I break it down to build the foundation. That is where I shine with it. And it's, your body image is your epicenter. And if that's not healthy, if you don't like the skin that you're standing in, how do you possibly feel worthy of being treated
Yeah,
like a human, right?
yeah,
And like and then from there, like, if you don't feel worthy of being talked to with respect and not being a doormat, then how do you have boundaries?
right.
And if you you get stuck in that circle, like you said, because it's if you don't have those boundaries, then you can never get to gratitude and manifestation and abundance. And I think we have to like shift that the fact that like we don't have to live in this circle. We get to break the cycle.
Exactly, exactly. That's what I look at too, as far as I love the 3, because I have 3 too, where it's
Mhm.
being able to heal your past so that you can embrace your present and align with your future. We can't see, and that's all to understand, like, what is my life purpose? What is my mission? What is my like what am I meant to be doing on this planet, right?
Oh,
Um so in order like we can't see the future and the unlimited abilities and potentials and possibilities when we're stuck in the past, or when we're stuck in, actually I won't even say the past, when we're stuck in autopilot and we're just doing things based on past beliefs that somebody told us was possible, wasn't possible, how we had to live, how we had, how we're supposed to have relationships, or how we even love ourselves. So if we're not aware that those old beliefs are playing into our present day, we're gonna stay stuck, right? We're gonna stay, and I mean, I hear it all the time when I'm talking to so many people, because not everybody does the work that we do, right? The internal work so that we can move forward and see the endless possibilities and trust ourselves and know that there's more out there and know that there's something different. But not everybody does that. So it's like when I'm talking to some people that haven't done the work, they're like, well, this is a really horrible world to live in. And it's just like gloom and doom. And I can't get out of this cycle. I'm like, you have a fucking choice. Like, we all have choices. Like, you
yes.
don't have to live like this.
And
That's the empowerment.
it's fucking hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the other day, I talk about like you have to choose to get out of the old habits. Like
Yes. Conscious decision every single
and,
day, every
and like
moment.
multiple times a day. Yeah. So like, you know, we had a disagreement the other night. And then and we went to bed and we were like, okay, we're all in. Like this is everything's okay. We've made amends. Everything's okay. Hung up the phone and I got up in the morning and he didn't send me like a good morning text. And I was like, huh, wow.
uh,
And I like picked up my phone and I like instantly like started typing. And then I was like, well, that's kind of snotty. Delete.
uh,
Then I started typing again. And I was like, well, that's not much better. Delete. And I put my phone down and I sat for a minute because I wanted the reassurance and I wanted the affirmation.
Yes.
And I picked my phone back up and literally was just like, good morning. I hope you have a fantastic day. And it was a conscious choice that I have to let go. And old me would never, ever have done that. I would have held on by the time that he texted me 2 hours later, I'd have been like, oh, so
No.
like, oh, it would have been a whole nother argument, right? All because
Yeah.
he didn't do what I wanted him to do in my head.
Yes. Yeah.
And
He didn't
so
meet the expectations that you did
right,
not for
that he
him
didn't
of.
even know we're there.
Exactly.
And but it was that moment when I realized that I was consciously choosing to not act on old behavior and patterns that felt
100%.
safer because if I did that, then I was in the right, like
Yes.
I'm the I'm the victim now, as
Yes. Oh.
opposed to being like, my ego hurts that he didn't text me first. You know what? He was still freaking sleeping. Like
Right.
he wasn't up yet. He doesn't have a 7-year-old who's up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Um,
Exactly.
so I think that it's hard.
Yes. Well, it's hard at, I would say, I want to say at first, but it's an ongoing process, right? Like, it's really, really hard to shift in the beginning. It continues to be a challenge as we move through, because guess what? We've been acting in this way for 40 years or
Mhm.
however old, right? And so, but making the conscious decision, like, you in the past, so I'll just give that, like, using that example of, like, it does sounds like it did not take you very long to shift, like, okay, it was a couple texts, you put it down, you pick it back up, good morning. Whereas before, like, how much longer would that have taken you to shift out of, right? So that becomes smaller
Yes.
because we can shift it quickly because we're aware of it. We're aware of it. I have done, like, the same things, whether it's in my relationship or getting, being afraid to make a decision or being that victim. I was taught very well to be a victim. I was taught very well to be a martyr also, right? Like, oh, I do all this stuff for so many people. And oh, the harder I work, I'm like, oh, yes, I work so hard and I deserve all the accolades. Like that was something that was taught to me. I saw it over and over and over. I continue to see it like within my family. So, not being the martyr, not playing the victim is a conscious decision because I'm not a victim. I can't be empowered and be a victim at the same time. That's one of those things that is very black and white. I don't say that very often. I'm like, I don't think there's a lot of stuff that's either or black and white, but that is one. Right?
100%. And you cannot, I agree with that, and I think it's not only does the time of the shift itself actually get smaller, I think it becomes more rewarding. It
Yes.
becomes a more because at first, like, I remember when I was very first starting this intense work, and this was going back a couple years ago, I would get so embarrassed of what old me would do that then I, like, didn't even wanna
Mm.
really, like, admit it or, like, you almost,
Yeah.
like you recognize it and you're like, "Oh, oh, well, let's just cover that back up because that was ugly." Like, yeah, maybe I'm lying to myself right now, right? Because who wants to admit that, like, "Ooh, that's not nice, that's not cool." Like,
Yeah.
and I've learned I had a coach once tell me, I heard her say this, and it stuck with me forever. If I don't look back and cringe, I've done no work.
Oh,
I
I
haven't grown.
love
And
that.
that changed the way I started being able to forgive my old self.
Yes. Oh my gosh, forgiveness is so big. So big because otherwise it's shame. It's shame and it's hiding it up and it's covering it up and the shame is going to stay there and it's going to keep us prisoner, right? If when we allow it to, and we're not going to be able to move forward holding on to shame, right? I mean, like, or it's like dragging like
Oh,
a I don't even know 100 pound weight behind you as you're trying to move
yeah,
forward.
you're like chained to the floor. Like,
Yeah.
and really that's like the vision I just had is like you're chained to the floor. You can get so far, but you'll never get farther.
Yes.
This whole year for me has been, I mean, I've had so much growth over the past, 5 and 6 years, but this whole year has really been dedicated to forgiving
Mm,
past me
yep.
and shedding the guilt and the shame around
Yes.
so many things that, like you said, we were taught,
Yep.
that we didn't know better, that we didn't have the experience yet. Like, there are
Yes.
certain things, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, "How do I teach my daughter this?" And I'm like, "You you can't. Some of
It's
it
an
she has to
experience.
learn."
Mhm. Mhm. And but the thing is that they're watching us. How old's your daughter again?
9.
Yeah. So they're constantly watching us. So when we do the inner work, it ripples out to our kids, right? And this is, I mean, we can get real woo woo here because I really, I do. When we do the inner work, I believe, like, because we're energetic beings, we're spiritual beings, that we're actually healing forward and backward, right? We're healing,
Yeah.
future generations. Our kids are seeing it. They're seeing what's possible, how they should treat themselves, how they, all of what all the endless possibilities for them. But we're also healing backwards, past generations, right? My family, my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and like I've had moments where I have been in like deep meditative state after doing like an energetic practice. I do a couple different ones, but it's like, and I saw the line. I saw the line back and forward, right? Where I was just like, it's clear as day. This is what's happening. So by, sometimes they experience it just through us, through our energy, through us living our life and challenging ourselves to be better, do better. And I sometimes hate using those words, but it truly is. It's like I want to be the best version of myself, right? Whatever that is. And that doesn't stop, right? That expansion and challenge doesn't stop. And that's the gift I think that we do, not think that I know we do that maybe past generations weren't open to. I mean, I think that my mom, again, I have this belief that y- everybody does the best they can until they learn differently, then we can choose differently, right?
Yes.
And my mom chooses not to do any different anymore, but she did a lot of things differently. I've had very open conversations with her, and just she's like, I think that what I wanted to instill in you was that you can choose what you want to do. Her life was prescribed to her by her mother,
Yeah.
and she took it, and she still takes it. She's like, well, she wants me to do this and she wants me to do that, and I'm like, Ma, you're 64. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yep.
you don't have to do that anymore, but she's stuck in it. And, but yeah, just having those conversations and recognizing that she did. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm really grateful that you did let me just choose my path. She truly did. She supported anything I wanted to do, any wild dreams or anything. So
And
that's
that
I
is
think it's important,
beautiful.
right? I think it's important to recognize because we talk about like generational trauma, but there's also generational healing and there's
Yes.
generational sacrifice and there's generation like everything that she sacrificed for me to get here, everything that we've sacrificed to bring our kids. And the sacrifices now I think are different, right? Because when I think of sacrificing, it's like, oh, I have to like I have to work all the time so that my kids can have this or whatever, because that's the old pattern of sacrifice.
Mhm.
But now it's like, no, I'm sacrificing the possibility of not really being accepted by certain people because of my beliefs and because I'm challenging old beliefs and
I
right?
never
So,
thought of that as a sacrifice, but how interesting and how perfectly timed that is with, like, all what the direction I am moving in. I actually text my mom yesterday and said, "I am just giving you a warning that
wow.
there is going to be some things coming up and coming out that you are probably not going to want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And I need you to be okay with it because holding it back is sacrificing without I didn't know it was sacrificing, but it was sacrificing my authenticity. And
Yes.
it was this feeling of like and it hit me so hard yesterday, like, I have to open this door. And I know it. It's so deep down in my gut. I know it. And the reason I haven't, I know my mom doesn't want to hear it.
Yep.
Among other people, but the only one whose opinion I really care is or who I'm worried about hurting is her, right?
Yes.
And and I think, and she was like, "Okay, well, thank you for that warning." And I was just like, "Are you gonna tell me?" "Nope, I'm not gonna tell you anything you don't really wanna know." So
Right.
and it was a beautiful thing, like, to be able to say, like, "But you're right. We sacrifice what people will think, what they will say, the judgment, all of that." Oh,
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm writing fiercely down because I'm like, ooh, I either have to do like a podcast about this or write about it or do a training on it. I'm not sure. But I'm just like, what are you sacrificing by not aligning with like your big vision, your legacy, your however you want to put it, right? It's like you're sacrificing authenticity, you're sacrificing joy, you're sacrificing passion, right? These are all of the things that we don't get to have and our children don't get to have when we don't step past our fear and into our purpose, you know?
and I think when you said, like, our job is to, like, be to do our best that we can do today, like, to me, that simply means authentically in my
Mhm.
own power. It doesn't mean that I have to have better sales numbers. It doesn't mean that I have to do this better or that better. It simply means that I have to do what calls and speaks to me. And if something is
Yes.
a no, that I actually stand firm in that's a no. And I stand by my boundaries and I stand by my decisions.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, we could
What is it? Unapologetically, right?
unapologetically. We could talk about this forever because we are both so passionate about it, and
Yes.
it is something that I think we both, we spend so much time working on ourselves, like,
Mhm.
really realigning what is our vision, what are
Right.
our boundaries, and realizing that they are ever fluid,
Yes.
which that was a new realization of like a year and a half ago was like, the finish line keeps moving. Why does it keep
Ah!
fucking moving? Somebody take the finish line down. Like, when do I get there? When am I done?
Yeah, it's
Never,
never, never.
never.
And how beautiful that is,
I mean, I
right?
was gonna say
And
what bullshit, but yeah, how beautiful.
I think it's beautiful as long as I'm breathing, I can grow and expand and challenge, things and just love, yeah, so many things that we get to do as we heal, as we grow, and as we expand into our highest vision and version of
Ugh,
ourselves, right? And it's a gift, and that's what I think, right? Like that's truly when I think about that mission that I started, like, we always I go back to like, why am I doing this? It's so important to hold on to that. Why I do this is because I believe wholeheartedly, whole spirited, however you want to put it, that when we are aligned with our most authentic self, like I envision a world like that and how beautiful that would be for us right now and again future generations, right? Of just like be 100% you, follow your dreams, know yourself. You have to know yourself, be aware, like self-awareness, I mean empathy, compassion, it's all embedded, but like when we are our authentic self, there's less suffering in the world.
I
There's less
think
suffering in
that
our life.
all the time. Like,
Mhm.
if everybody just used direct communication and didn't take things personally,
Yeah.
and I have absolutely taken things personally.
Yes.
But if we
Same.
didn't, if we could learn to make that separation and we all just did what we truly wanted, we would be so happy.
Yes.
And I don't even like I like the word happy, but I always go more towards in like a case like that, like joyful, because I feel like joyful brings like a sense of peace where happy is this like time stamped,
Yeah.
like, oh, we're going to Disney World. But like,
Right.
joyful is like this joyous peace that is just internal.
Yes. Yeah, and it can look like so many different things, right? And whenever I think of joy, I think about the energy levels and the frequencies that happen when we do vibrate at higher levels. Joy is up there, peace is up there, enlightenment, of course, love is up there. These
Yes.
are all high frequencies. The low frequencies are apathy and not even anger, it's apathy and suffering, of course, grief, shame. Shame is like
Same.
one of the lowest vibrational frequencies, right? So like and I can talk about this as far as
Oh,
manifestation and um attracting, more abundance in your life. And I did like just a quick like live video the other day. I'm like, don't wait for life to be great in order to be grateful. You actually are grateful now, and that creates more greatness in your life. Like that's how we roll. That's just again law of attraction and vibrational frequencies and stuff. But yeah, joy, I have a whole module on joy and how to like intentionally increase your joy and how we have this joy set point because we can't allow ourselves to get too excited or too
yes.
happy because something bad's going to happen and the carpet's going to be pulled out and all these just all the bullshit that we tell ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that shame is one that we get, most of us, it's what I see the most is
Yes.
getting stuck in this chain of shame and guilt, and
Yeah.
it it traps you. And I think for me, one of the biggest turning points was back in 2018. It was a year after my ex-husband's attempted suicide when I finally put it out to the world. that
Wow.
this is what we were actually going through behind closed doors, that we were on food stamps, that I didn't know how we were going to keep the house, that we had had Christmas gifted to us. And I was so ashamed of all of it. And finally, it was amazing because as you put it out there, and you don't put it out for attention and for pity and for like, you're putting it out there because somebody else is going through this, and we shouldn't be embarrassed. We should be able to reach out. Because I remember saying, if he had cancer right now, if he was in a car accident and broke his back, there would be meal trains, there would be food trains, there would be babysitters. But instead, because it's mental illness, we're locking the doors and we're keeping everybody out and we're pretending
Ah,
it's not going on. And it was one of the turning points where I started really realizing that, like, shame can't grow in the light. It
no.
instantly stops growing. As soon as you put it out there, it
Yes.
stops.
Yes.
And then we can take our power back.
Absolutely.
And then we can learn to actually find peace about what happened and be grateful, because that entire experience, while it was the absolute worst experience I've ever lived through in my life, it was a huge turning point for who I became,
Yeah.
right?
But you had to make that conscious decision, right? You truly
Yes.
did,
Yeah.
right? Of just like, think about all of the tipping point. Just so it's the Hawkins scale. Like you can look at different scales and stuff like that. The tipping point for energy, right, from low to high, is courage. It's
Oh,
courage. So you had to have the courage to step past that fear of hiding in the dark, of being so ashamed. So it's like, I'm going to put this out there. I don't know what's going to happen, and that's how we do, like, having the courage to start our own jobs, to move to, I mean, we were in Georgia for 20 years. We were established. We had a beautiful house. We loved where we lived. And I'm like, we're supposed to move home. Like, this is, you know, that's the fucking, again, it's not rational. You just know that, and to have the courage to step past that fear and know that, like, I think there's just a knowing, like, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But then we learn that it's way more than okay. It's actually the most beautiful experience once we pass through that. And like, it's just what we build it up to be. But
as a
yes,
disclaimer, it
courage.
can take a couple years to pass through. Just as my own personal disclaimer out there, like, if you put your courage forward and you're like, "Well, why am I not there yet?"
But it has to be, it's an because the work that we do of, like, moving past, being courageous enough to go into the unknown, to step out into the unknown, like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna do this and I'm not sure. It's that's one part of it, but we're going through
Oh,
a spiritual shift, a mental shift, a heart shift, all of these things.
so many things. And each and every one, like, you look back now and I can see each stepping block, right? Like, I can
Yes,
see where each one, like, and it didn't feel like I was, like, given a breathing room at the time, but I can look back now and be
exactly.
like, "Oh, that was some breathing room."
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
then, hop, boom, like,
Right, right.
and each and every one takes you to the next layer and the next level, and it is, I think it all comes back to having faith in yourself and faith in the universe or
Mhm.
God or whatever it is that is to you, that higher power. Um, but at the end of the day, if you don't trust yourself,
Yeah.
we got nothing. Like, we're the only people we can count on is right here, right?
Right, it has to come from the inside out, right? And then it ripples out into your life, and, um, I always say, I'm like, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Every step of the way, everything is happening for you. And really just like having that belief, because shit gets hard. Life is life. I say we're still spiritual beings having this human experience. And because of that, we're going to have ups and downs. Shit's going to blow up. It's going to rock. And how do you choose to move through it? Again, it goes back to that intentional, like, decision, right? Intention of, this is what I want.
Yeah,
This is how I'm going to do it. And this is how I'm going to shift my mindset. And yeah,
one
so every day.
100%. And I
Mhm.
just think that that is such a beautiful and important thing, that it's something so simple that people, it sounds simple. I shouldn't say it is simple, right? But like, it's something we can start calling awareness to.
Yes. I
That
would
we don't
say
need a whole lot of training behind, like, and it starts simply with just being aware, right? Like, it's just being aware.
self-awareness. I had a woman who, and I know that we have to wrap up. So I know that I had a woman who started trusting her intuition by just listening, right? Being aware of like this little voice that's like, hey, why don't you turn down here? And I remember one of her pivotal moments. And through my program, she was just beautiful. I mean, now she's living her, she always wanted to travel by herself, and that's what she did. She sold her house. She's traveling now. She is living such a beautiful life. I still connect with her. And anyways, but she was like, you know what? She's like, I listened to this voice in me that said, you know what? Just turn here. She was driving. She's like, just turn down this road. But and you know, her logical mind, she was just like, we're going home. That doesn't lead to home, right? Just turn. So she turned and she goes up this you know, sort of side of a mountain. She lives in even northern New York, more northern than us. Um, and she ended up, it was 1 year to the day. Her like ride or die buddy was her dog. Like and he had passed away a year prior. And she rode up this, you know, went up the road and she said, "Oh my God." She got out of the car, she stopped, she was looking around. It was this beautiful, beautiful mountain. And she had realized that a year ago, her and her dog were on that mountain like walking and stuff like that. And she was just like right then and there, she knew that her intuition led her there to remember to sort of just like hold on to the love
Yeah.
to right. And that was just one, that's what I'm saying, like one little thing, just like that. It doesn't have to be a big
No.
explosive, like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. It's typically this quiet voice that just sort of guides you. And that's the self awareness. That's
I
that
say it so
dropping
nicely. I'm
in.
like, it nags you. It's
Ah,
that voice that you can't shake, right? Like,
yeah.
that feeling that you're like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for 6 years in business, I tried doing it my own way.
Right? We can be so
Stubborn.
stubborn. I tried it for 10 years, so I won't even say anything.
I mean, oh, Leanne, I could talk to you all day, but you do have more meetings, and I have
I
things to do,
know,
and
I know you
in the
do.
middle of this, I spilled my coffee all over myself. I haven't
I
even
thought
really
I saw that.
how did I spill my coffee all over myself? I'm sitting here with, like, very wet, sticky legs.
I saw
Oh,
that.
tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, because
Yes.
what
Yeah.
plug yourself.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I also have a podcast at Cricket Talk Straight with my co-host Katie Myers. So we have that. I also have the Institute for Female Trailblazers. That's my website. So instituteforfemaletrailblazers.com. I am on, you can find me on all the social media. On Instagram, it's Institute Female Trailblazers. On Facebook, it's actually Leanne Jamison. And I have a private group just for women because it wouldn't let me change it. It wouldn't let me change it to Institute for Female Trailblazers. They're like, nope, sorry, that's not a name. That's a business. I'm like, no. Anyway, whole nother
Interesting.
story. Yeah. And then I have a private Facebook group for just women because I only work with women. And it's Women on the Rise. So,
Okay.
so many different ways to connect. I will make sure to give you all my handles and stuff like that, all the
Yes, and they will
different.
all be in the show notes.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
so
you.
find you guys connect with Leanne. She
Thank
is
you.
an absolute gem, and, her
Thank
work is
you.
incredible. If you, like, take some time and read some of her posts, like, they're so good.
Thanks.
Um, it's been so much fun, so thank you so much, Leanne.
Tab, thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored to just be in this space with you. So, and
We're
I say the same thing about your post. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love your affirmations. Oh my gosh,
I
I love.
know. We like, really, it's amazing because we do different, but yet the same
Yes, it's like the
thing.
same
It's all
mission,
based
right?
in the same, right? But it's just focusing on different points of where you're at in your life and what you're looking for.
Exactly.
So yes,
So
go out, find
beautiful.
her, like her, love all of her stuff. And on that note, you guys go out and sparkle today.
Yes, let your legacy shine.
Yes.
Thank you.